Whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thine fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. Call of the roll. Mr. Clark, Mr. Bartlett, Dr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Miss Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terrelong, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Whittle, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Miss Crawford, Miss Daly, Miss Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Miss Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Miss Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblis, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Wright. Okay, you are marked. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to welcome everyone, both present here and those who are following us by the various social media platforms and PBCJ, to the Honorable House of Representatives for this sitting, Tuesday, 1st October 2024. Let me also make special mention of a new addition to the team, Ashley Zemenes. She is the new Legislative Counsel employed to the Houses of Parliament. Make her welcome. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to associate myself with the comments you made with regards to welcoming members to the sitting of the House and to welcome also those in the gallery, and particularly to welcome the new member of staff for us who will be uh, guiding us legally and otherwise as we seek to carry out the will of the people in this chamber. Um, Madam Speaker, today we will have three statements, one by the Minister of Education, the other by the Minister of Labor and Social Security, and the third by the Minister of Finance. Thereafter, we will proceed to public business when the Minister of Justice will take a measure in his name. May Minister of Justice, we did say that, yes? Oh, it's a good thing Hansard is not listening. Hansard has, has no sense of hearing at this time. Madam Speaker, may it please you to proceed accordingly.
Thank you, House Leader. First to her feet is the Minister from the Ministry of Education and Youth, the member from St. Andrew Eastern. Please make her welcome. Minister, have you circulated a copy of your statement? Minister, I know it's a convention, but as indicated last week, it is beneficial if additional time is needed, and it does help persons to follow. So I want to make sure it is understood. It is not a rule, it's a wonderful convention because it helps, especially the speaker, to give extra time when it is needed. That is correct. That is correct, Member Warmington. Convention is not law. Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in 2022, the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, was established to monitor the execution and the implementation of the recommendations as outlined in the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission's report in 2021. As per that report, the transformation of Jamaica's education sector is spread across 7 pillars. These are governance and accountability. And when we speak of that, we include our school boards, and we think of accountability at all layers of the education sector. The second pillar is early childhood education, and we can all agree that this provides a foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. The third pillar is teacher curriculum and teacher training in terms of quality of teachers, quality of the curriculum, relevance of the curriculum, and ongoing professional development of our teachers. The fourth is the tertiary sector, and the report speaks to alignment of tertiary with other parts of the education system. TVET, which is technical and vocational education and training, infrastructure and technology, and finance. And these are the 7 pillars of transformation. The Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, which is a committee that was recommended by the report, has been in existence now for many months. It meets weekly with stakeholders to monitor and track the implementation of the 365 recommendations. These recommendations are broken down accordingly into short-term recommendations, medium-term recommendations, long-term recommendations, and you can see the time span for each. So for example, short-term recommendations would span 2023 to 2026, medium-term would span 2026 to 2029, long-term would be into 2031. And we've outlined for you how the 365 recommendations break down. The largest number of recommendations are in the teacher curriculum and teacher training pillar, 164 there, and then governance and accountability, 79. Madam Speaker, the time frame for the implementation of these recommendations is 8 years, between 2023 to 2031. Madam Speaker, transformation is everyone's business, and it gives me great pleasure to note that ETOC has maintained its commitment to updating the nation through scheduled quarterly meetings that provide tangible information on the progress of the recommendations. The last quarterly meeting was on Friday, June 28, 2024, and the next one is on Thursday, October 3, 2024. Each time ETOC gives a presentation to the nation, we lay that report in Parliament. Additionally, the original Orlando Patterson report was also laid in Parliament. Madam Speaker, in the period April 2023 to June 2024, 101 recommendations were being worked on. 91 recommendations are on track. We've completed 6 of them. 4 were reported lagging for that period. In the period April 2024 to March 2025, 95 recommendations have been brought forward. 35 have been added, totaling 130 recommendations for implementation, and those are largely on track. Madam Speaker, ETOC, which is the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, has a logical and clear implementation plan and is deliberate in all efforts at communications, as is evidenced in the Transforming Education for National Development Trend campaign that employs traditional and non-traditional forms of media reaching Jamaicans across the island. Madam Speaker, I hope the members of this honorable House, having received the most recent report, would have taken the time to peruse it. While there are many recommendations that to which I can speak, I will share that ETOC and team members at the Ministry of Education and Youth are not blind to the issues and realities across the sector. Together, we see the urgent need to improve the fundamentals in literacy and numeracy so that students' mathematics and English scores can improve. To achieve this, the focus has been on increasing teacher quality and effectiveness, increasing the relevance of curriculum, assessment, and the teaching and learning experience, providing inclusive teaching and learning environments and appropriate support services. So far, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education and Youth has fully funded software licenses for students to use the Book Fusion app, the Learning Hub platform for grades 4, the Cheetah platform for grades 4 to 6, and these platforms have e-resources that are available for ordinary classes as well as exams. Some 8,000 laptops are being procured for primary schools. 810 interactive whiteboards are also being procured to include infant, primary, secondary, and colleges. There's also been a strong focus on training in partnership with the Jamaica Teaching Council, JTC, Ministry of Education and Youth, Core Curriculum Unit, and IDB partners. 9 additional courses have been onboarded to the JTC's learning management system, and more than 12,000 teachers trained across various topics. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has invested much in the early childhood sector. We understand that there is still more to be invested. We are improving monitoring, we're improving coordination, oversight, and governance of this sector. We're increasing the capacity of the early childhood sector to meet standards. We're increasing access for children and parents to higher quality early childhood development. Madam Speaker, the work of transformation continues in earnest. We're about 15% of the way through the process of conducting a comprehensive review of the current early childhood legislation. The early childhood policy is 45% complete. But of importance, Madam Speaker, is that since the start of this financial year, some 1,642 early childhood practitioners have been trained, with 300 of that number undergoing training between July and September 24. And I want to commend the Early Childhood Commission for improving the depth of the professional development programs available to early childhood practitioners. We're currently working on formalizing a parallel pathway for in-service early childhood practitioners to obtain a first degree and are approximately 15% complete. Madam Speaker, I want to remind this Honorable House that children with special needs are at the forefront of our plans and actions as well. Through the Legacy Project, we are retrofitting more classrooms in infant schools to ensure support and that we meet the needs of all children. These classrooms are not only in Kingston and St. Andrew, but spread across the island to include other parishes. Transformation requires the building of partnerships. Last week, ETOC's chairman and a team from the ministry met with the private sector organization of Jamaica. We have already begun meeting with philanthropic organizations, including foundations and companies with corporate social responsibility components, and will continue to do so in an attempt to engage all sectors of the society to the work we're doing. Madam Speaker, I look forward to continuing the conversations on education. Transforming education is no small or easy task, but through collaboration, commitment, and a shared vision for a better future for our children, we will achieve what we set out to do, giving each and every Jamaican child access to the highest quality education that they deserve. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Responding will be the member from St. Andrew Southwest.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me first of all thank the Minister for the statement on the education transformation and the information that she has provided. I believe that it is a succinct statement on on ETOC and also the approach to the transformation of education according to the Patterson report and the work of ETOC. And I believe that we're pleased for that. I join Minister in asking members here in the House as well as individuals engaged in education to make sure that they do take a look at the quarterly report so that they can be aware of where we are going, what's happening, and what is left to be done. Minister, there are just a few questions that are raised as I read, and I see the focus in terms of literacy, numeracy, and so on, and what is being done. I think that an important issue that keeps arising is really in terms of payment to teachers. So I want to just, yeah, payments, yes, to teachers. And I keep saying sometimes we say, oh, it's not many, it's just a few, and therefore, why are we raising it? But with the cost of living, what it is in Jamaica, with the quality of life, what it is in Jamaica, for individuals who are teaching our children, we want to make sure that we pay attention to them, and that payments that they deserve and that they earn, that they get them on time. I also note, Madam Speaker, the funded software licenses for students to use. I remember in an earlier iteration, a report being given on the software that teachers were supposed to be using. And I remember when we got the figure in terms of engagement, how shocked many were. So I didn't see it here, so I wanted to ask, what is the level of engagement? Are we monitoring that? Making sure that not only are the software licenses funded, but they are actually being used, and we are monitoring the percentage of persons who are engaged using them, and also, just as important, those who are unable for one reason or another to use it, whether it is because they don't have access to devices to connect stable connectivity, or whether their home situation does not allow for the monitoring of that. So it would be good to get that kind of a report to get a better understanding as to where we are with that. I want to raise the same issue, Madam Speaker, or same question in terms of the more than 12,000 teachers who are trained across the various topics, and that I think is in the core curriculum units, and the 9 additional courses that the minister spoke about. It would be good to know what percentage that represents of those who are targeted. Yes, so 12,000 teachers have been trained across the various topics. But what is the target, and where are we in terms of that, and what percentage does that 12,000 represent? I also wanted, Minister, you did speak about a parallel pathway for in-service early childhood practitioners to obtain a first degree, and that is 15% complete. I think that is extremely important, because in my discussions with persons who are engaged in early childhood teaching and learning, many have become frustrated in terms of seeking a seamless path from where they are to get into teaching and to move from there. As you and I would know, many of them who are at early childhood institutions, in terms of the level of remuneration, without without higher qualification, that they are struggling. Yes, they are struggling. Many of them say to me that based on where they are and the remuneration that they're getting, it is a struggle to manage. So I want us to make sure that we look at that. Also, we are very, very clear that the early childhood institutions, when we talk about them, if we are only focused, and I understand why we would be tempted to be on those that are within the purview of the ministry, that is one set. We also have to look at the majority that are actually not under there, but are community based and offer a level.
Um, Madam Speaker, in anticipation of your call, I beg to move that the member's time be extended by 3 minutes in order to enable her to complete her presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Question is that the members' time be extended by 2 minutes in order to allow her to complete the presentation or response. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. As I close, Minister, I am always pleased when we talk about leaving no one behind and when we look at our children with special needs and we make sure that they are indeed at the forefront of our plans. I did not get a sense from what you have presented here, Minister, um, where we are in terms of the physical infrastructure to accommodate those with physical disabilities. I know that last year and at the beginning of this year, there were a few complaints and that was raised. So it would be good to get an update on that. I remember, I think it was last year, towards the end of last year as well, there were some issues around shadows and so on. So it would be good just to bring us up to date with those because we are all indeed clear that for education to really serve us as it should, that no one should be left behind. Thank you.
Minister, there is a question from the member St. Mary Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, the member from Southwest St. Andrew spoke somewhat to the question I'm going to ask. In your presentation, you made mention of the retrofitting of classrooms for children with special needs. But having regard to the fact that the majority of early childhood institutions are not operated by the mainstream Ministry of Education, and they would see the vast majority of students with special needs. What provisions are being made through the ministry to accommodate these students? Is it that the ministry is asking that these private or church institutions that operate in the communities where they have special needs children, that they send those children to the government infant schools where the facilities are? And if not, what are the plans to assist those? Because at the end of the day, whether it is a ministry operated infant school or not, it is catering to the children of the people of Jamaica.
Turn on your mic, please, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'll start with your first one, member, with regards to payment for teachers, and I'm assuming that you're talking about instances in which there may be late payment. I am happy to say we've gotten significantly better since over the last year, year and a half, because we have worked assiduously to implement the My HR system, which is a system that is a payroll, HR, and pension system as well. So we've gotten significantly better, and you're not hearing in the public domain these cries of being late. At the same time, though, I want to say that it's not perfect, And especially when we begin a new school year and bring on new teachers, there tends also to be that situation. This school year, we worked overtime to ensure that we don't have new teachers who are not getting their payment at the end of September. And we did a very good job. I know that there's only one school so far of which I am aware that told us that some teachers did not get their payment on time. And when we looked into it, in many of the cases, there were a handful of teachers. Documents came in late. Um, um, uh, no, another one. Is there a situation at George Henley? Okay, I'll look into that. But it's mostly when we get into September, it's mostly the new teachers coming onto the system because there's paperwork that the ministry needs to get, and sometimes it takes a little while to get to where it's going. But we are very conscious of not causing delays, and that's why we have worked so hard to get that system into the ministry, because otherwise payroll tends to be manual, and we are quickly moving away from the manual nature of payroll. Level of engagement of teachers, I take it with the e-resources that are provided. I know that we have a higher level of engagement. I don't have the exact percentage, but the more we raise the awareness about what's available, it's the more we see teachers access. And now that all our teachers in the system, from primary through to high school, have access to a device, they have access to laptops provided by this government. Um, Additionally, as you look across the school system, more schools have access to broadband capability. We have been undertaking this massive project now for 2 years to bring broadband capability to schools wherever they are in Jamaica. And we're about 2/3 of the way there. So not only are we providing the devices, the e-resources, but also the connectivity to enable all of that. The percent or number of teachers targeted for professional development through Jamaica Teaching Council. We mentioned that 12,000 teachers have gotten professional development in a number of different areas. This is ongoing. The target is 100% of teachers, because professional development is something that teachers should continue to do year in, year out. Parallel pathway in early childhood for the teachers. This is something that we're working on earnestly because we recognize the limitations there currently. And I'm sure I'll come back to Parliament to talk about this because I think it's going to be extremely positive for the sector. Um, Assistance to basic schools, which are those schools, those early childhood institutions that are run by others other than government. We do provide, as a government, assistance in a number of different ways. One very big way is a stipend that we give to the trained teachers in those institutions. Those institutions have access to e-resources as well at no cost to them. As an example, during Hurricane Beryl, there were a few basic schools that got damaged, and through the Early Childhood Commission, those basic schools had some help from the government to restore them. Approximately 25% of the 2,000 early childhood institutions are fully funded by government, but we assist the others, the basic schools that are out there as well. Physical infrastructure for physically challenged Students, every year we add to the number of ramps that are at schools. I think now we're approaching 400 schools with ramp to ensure that those who are physically challenged and have to use a wheelchair, that they're able to access classes. Additionally, we're beginning for those schools with multiple levels to put in lifts so that our students have access as well. We're not there yet in terms of saying 100% of our schools have ramps, but we have a pathway to getting there, and every year there's budget for installation of ramps in school. Shadows, we provide shadows for those who need it in the system currently. I think it's almost 350 shadows that we have in the system that do get a stipend to help those children in classes who need the help while they're in class. They could need help coming from home to school, school to home, and so on. And we consider this a significant benefit that we're able to provide to our students. And the member from St. Mary's Central, retrofitting of classrooms for children with special needs, what provision to accommodate. As I said, ramps is something that we've had a focus on. In the school system, we do have some institutions that are dedicated to children with special needs, and so of course those classrooms and bathrooms will be so fitted out for those students. Where we have students with special needs that are fully integrated, are mainstreamed into other classes. Of course, we make provisions as well for those students if they have to use wheelchair or they have other special requirements. We have an entire unit at the Ministry of Education and Youth dedicated to dealing with ensuring that the needs of our special needs students are attended to. Do we have more work to do? Yes, we do, because as you know, there are some special needs that are arising now that we did not know about, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago. And I speak to issues of autism that's only now coming to our awareness. So you can imagine we have the training that we have to do, the sensitization, and so on. We also use private persons, private institutions that have specialty for special needs students. The ministry will pay the fee for those students to access private schools. It pays the full fee for those students to access private schools. So we are ensuring that special needs students have the focus that they deserve in the education system. But I will admit there's always more that can be done. But so far, I think, there's good work that we've been doing in that area. Thank you.
Just a follow-up, Minister. When I asked about the percentage for the engagement, this was in terms of the funded software licenses for students to use. The Book Fusion app, the Learning Hub platform for grades 4, the Cheetah platform, and so on. Um, I didn't get a specific answer to that. If you don't have the numbers now, that's fine. We could come back to that. I believe that if we are funding the software, we need to also be tracking how it is being used, who is still being left behind for one reason or another. So I think that is a concern. You said about the payment for teachers, Minister. I am still getting complaints that there were a lot of teachers who have not been paid. And but the teacher shortage is another thing. I'm sure somebody else will raise that, but I wanted to deal with it.
Minister, in addition to your follow-up questions, you have two final questions from the member from St. Andrew West and the member from St. Andrew Southeast. And that will conclude your statement by Minister and responses. Minister, please turn your mic on.
Just
Yeah.
thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to just hone in on the issue of teacher shortage. We recognize that generally at the beginning of the academic year, you have a number of resignations, generally teachers who are migrating for better opportunities. Can you give the Parliament an update on the adequacy of teachers at all levels, for the high school and the primary school level? I'm just in receipt, Madam Speaker, of a memo from Cornwall College, which is dated September 11th, and it refers to an acute shortage of teachers for English language, biology, mechanical technology, and as a result, they have had to significantly reduce those classes because they simply can't deliver education without those teachers. So my question, Minister, is to what extent is the teacher shortage affecting the quality of education, as is the case here with Cornwall College? I don't know how many other schools are in a similar position, and whether the new trainees who are coming out of the Teachers College are sufficient to make up for those who are migrating or leaving the profession.
Minister, where are we on the trajectory for eliminating the shift system? And when is Edith Dalton James High likely to be taken off that shift system?
All right, so member, we do track the usage of the platforms that I stated. I just don't have the numbers with me, but I can say because those platforms also focus on the PEP subjects, that they're more used than any other platform that we have. Um, the shift system, a member. We have, when I started at the ministry, we had some 38 schools still on shift, and now we're down to less than 30. We will continue to take schools off a shift. Come, I will come to you in terms of the timeline for Edith Dalton to get off the shift. But that is something that we're serious about. That's something we're serious about, to eliminate from the system, to ensure that all our students have the same access to school, because we know that time on task, meaning time in the classroom with teachers, is important for learning. And when you look at the shift system currently, students have to wake up way early to get to school, sometimes depending on where we are in the year, could be dark, and some of them go home way late as well. And just to say, recently, we took Ocho Rios Primary School off the shift, and I was bowled over by the students in terms of them singing about getting off the shift, or just talking about it. They were so elated. So I know that it's really a positive benefit for our students. I will come back to you in terms of Edith Dalton in particular, the time frame for that. And in terms of member, about the cadre of teachers in the system, I wish I had the number here with me about the new teachers that we've welcomed in the system. I know it's over 700 new teachers that we've welcomed in the system. Yes. All right. Uh, we're not saying at any particular school there may be, right? You've brought Cornwall College um, to the attention of the Parliament. In different schools, there may be a gap for a particular subject area. We're not saying that every school has their full cadre of teachers. We love for our schools to flag it to us because it is at the school level that teachers are hired. So the schools have to inform us as to where they are. So, for Cornwall College to say they're missing or they would like to, they don't have, um, we'd love to know about that as well because it's at the board level that the hiring of teachers happen. And we only get that information after they've gone through the process of hiring teachers. Um, what? All right. Go ahead, ask.
Minister, I know this is an important area, but as indicated before, there are a long schedule of statement by ministers. And as I had indicated, you were on your last question. So I will allow the member from St. Andrew, Southeast with a follow-up question, and that is it.
No, my follow-up is really in relation to, this is a process question that the minister spoke to in terms of how do you know how many teachers are absent? The memo I read from was one that went to the parents and the student population. I know you would have educational officers who are assigned to specific schools. You have specific regions that you would have a regional director who I assume on a periodic basis, whether monthly or not, would come back to you and say, based on the feedback from the various schools, we're picking up that we have problems with math or science, and these are the numbers. But from your answer, it doesn't appear that that system is either in place or working satisfactorily so that you have a global picture of the shortage of specific teachers in specific areas throughout the country.
So member or my HR system is going to allow us to keep track of teachers, knowing their profession, knowing their subject areas, and a lot more about teachers than we do now. We have to depend on that system that you just described, where the school makes it known to the education officer, who then makes it known to the region, finds its way to the ministry um, to see how best we can intervene in that situation. I know our principals on the ground, they have flexibility in terms of their timetable, in terms of different strategies that they can use if they're missing a particular subject area. And we implore them all the time to use this flexibility that they have. Obviously, we love to see our trained teachers at their station every day in our schools. But in the event there are gaps, we do work with our schools as soon as this information comes to us about what it is that's needed in the schools.
Minister, just a clarification on the question asked by the member from Western St. Andrew. Can you see? The member from Western St. Andrew about the shift system. And I share your contentment with the merits of coming off the shift system. But I was listening for the answer to the question. Is there a schedule? Because you do know all the schools that are currently on shift? And secondly, is there a plan with a schedule to take these schools off the shift system?
Member
And if you could
Jackson,
share
you're
that.
in breach, you asked for clarification and you
Yes.
have moved on to asking questions.
Clarity.
Minister, go ahead and respond, and this is where we close. No further clarification or questions, members. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, member, with regards to the schedule for schools to come off shift, we do have a schedule, but as you know, we have to operate within budgets, and we have to deal with a lot of different infrastructure issues with our budgets. And so we would kind of rather not put out a schedule because we know that this can shift around. But we are saying to all those schools that are left on the shift system that over time, and I would say over the next 5 to 7 years, we will see an elimination of the shift system in Jamaica.
Next to his feet is the Minister of Finance and the Public Service. Member from St. Andrew Northwest.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in October 2021, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service launched a request for applications process whereby interested investors were invited to submit applications for 2 approved integrated resort development licenses, each for an exclusive geographical zone. In my capacity of Minister of Finance and the Public Service, I established an enterprise team to receive and process applications, oversee the due diligence exercise, and make recommendations to me regarding the award of integrated resort development orders. 2 applications were received for 2 exclusive zones that were on offer in the RFA. The 2 zones were the combined zone of Hanover and Westmoreland and the zone of St. James. After fulfilling the necessary requirements, the enterprise team recommended that AIRD, an approved integrated resort development order, be issued or license be issued to the applicant for the Hanover and Westmoreland zone. This was done in August 2023. And Madam Speaker, as we speak, integrated resort development is well underway in Hanover with the requisite number of rooms. I think it's about over 1,000 rooms, 500 of which are luxury rooms. And it is just great to see the Jamaica tourism product being diversified and deepened. The other applicant, Madam Speaker, was given additional time to respond to queries relating to its application. Upon review of those responses and all relevant material, the enterprise team determined that the applicant had not provided sufficient evidence to satisfy the enterprise team that the applicant had met the mandatory financing disclosures required by statute in relation to the applicant's proposed project. The enterprise team has therefore advised me against awarding an order to the second applicant. Madam Speaker, as Jamaica climbs the ladder of our development and we set up governance processes that are robust, the award of licenses are never proper to be installed under the sole purview and pen of an elected minister. That is why in our regulatory apparatus. We have the BOJ that does banking licenses. We have the FSC that does security licenses and other licenses. We have the BGLC that does betting licenses. When it comes to integrated resort development licenses, for the minister to receive applications himself and to go through hundreds and hundreds of pages and then issue a license can be subject to all manner of misinterpretations, none of which are good. And hence the idea, in the interest of good governance, to set up an enterprise team for them to be endowed with expertise, in this case Ernst & Young, and to have them do the adjudication. But once that adjudication is done, we have to have the discipline to abide by the recommendations of the enterprise team unless there is manifest error. And in this case, I'm not aware of any manifest error. So, Madam Speaker, in that regard, the recommendation of the enterprise team has been accepted. I'll remind this House that an integrated resort development must have a minimum of 1,000 hotel rooms, of which 500 must be luxury rooms, and it must have a minimum capital investment of $450 million. The concept of integrated resort development was introduced by the government of Jamaica more than a decade ago. I think it was in 2010 that we had the first passage of the Casino Gaming Act to further expand the country's tourism product. And remember, the experience that we have had is one where we have given orders before without robust processes, only to see that nothing has emerged from the ground. I will say that the first integrated resort development, Madam Speaker, is going to be under this government. It's already built, it's already there. These luxury developments, Madam Speaker, are not limited to hotels, but villas and spas and recreational facilities, shopping centers, and casino gaming. And in order to uphold the integrity of the process, we have to set clear criteria in an application process. And doesn't matter who the bidders are or what their level of support may be, if they don't come through the doors of the requirements of the application, they will not be successful. The government, Madam Speaker, is committed to supporting the diversification of the tourism entertainment product in Jamaica, and therefore the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service will continue to actively encourage and facilitate the construction and operation of integrated resort developments. And in this vein, the Ministry of Finance intends to issue another public invitation for applications for approved integrated resort developments for the St. James geographical zone very shortly. And I must add, Madam Speaker, that the pipeline of interest in Jamaica's hotel product is deep and large. We have thousands of hotel rooms that are under construction. Some of them are in design phase, and some of them are to open ground over the next few months. And we have a lot of interest in moving towards other types of tourism products. So this should be seen, Madam Speaker, as Jamaica growing up, of having independent processes for the award of very important licenses, and then having the discipline to abide by the recommendations of those enterprise teams once they're finished their work. May I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from St. Andrew Southeast will respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A couple of questions for the Minister. Could you remind the House of who the first license was awarded to? You indicated in August 2023 the name of that entity who got that first award for the Hanover and Westmoreland zone. Secondly, could you give a more specific time frame as to when the new request for proposal will be issued and how long that will be out, and when do you anticipate being in a position to select another awardee? And then the third question relates to the harmonization project, which would have preceded this. I want to know whether the government has met all the obligations on the GOJ side to facilitate the commencement of that project.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the first question, I would have issued a press release at the time informing Jamaica that the enterprise team had recommended that Princess Hotels, which had applied for an ARD license for the exclusive territory of Hanover and Westmoreland, that it be awarded to them. And that was fulfilled. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, Princess Hotel is far advanced with the completion of the hotel. They actually started building prior to the award of the license, and they have 500 luxury rooms coming up. They have overwater bungalows and 1,000 rooms overall on I believe, a 2,000-acre property, which will have multiple other facilities. So it's quite a promising development and one that we're very proud of. Your second question had to do with the timing. Given that we have just had such a process and we have an enterprise team in place, I would want to move as quickly as possible. That's only subject to how quickly the bureaucracy can move. But it would be great if we could. It would be great. I'm not saying that we'll achieve it, but it would be great if we could have it reopened in October. And it would be reopened for. I believe the last time we had it open for 6 months, and thereafter, enterprise team would do its work in the way it has. With respect to your question on Harmony Cove, even though the statement is not on Harmony Cove, I will oblige. There was a release earlier about a month and in about June of this year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or early July, where we updated the country that we had reached a new framework agreement with the promoters of that project in the form of a restated and amended joint venture agreement. The government's obligations under that agreement are one, to amend the IRD license that they already have, to ensure that they have, the requisite time period, i.e. to reset the license to begin now. Two, to amend the geographical territory as agreed. And three, to ensure that the government, as a joint venture partner, that the financing of the design and other pre-construction works, that the government's share of that financing is received by the joint venture company. And then, of course, to act with alacrity, but in accordance with Jamaica's rules and regulations, to ensure that the approvals for the construction are received in good time. Jamaica is making progress on all of these, including the, putting the financing in place. In fact, I believe that the first capital call for the design works has already, if I'm not mistaken, has already been dispersed.
Just two follow-up questions. On the harmonization, what's the totality of the government of Jamaica's obligation from a capital investment perspective? And secondly, in terms of the geographic zones, you made reference to two. Is there contemplation for similar types of projects, whether it be on the south coast or on the eastern part of the island? And where are we in terms of getting to that stage?
Yes, that question. The government is a owner. The government owns 50% of the Harmony Cove development. We are contributing our land, and we are contributing just $25 million for what will eventually be a project that will have over $1 billion of investment, inclusive of the value of the land, maybe $1.2 billion. So the government has been able to sort of to leverage its assets in a considerable way, putting up $25 million plus the land, and to be able to crowd in over $1 billion of investment into Jamaica. With respect to the second question, remind me. Right. So, Madam Speaker, Jamaica has been talking about, casino gaming for 15 years. The Casino Gaming Act first came into existence in 2010. And we were talking about it before, so maybe there's 20 years probably. 2010 is when it came into effect. But it's only now that we have the first integrated resort development coming out of the ground. So we have had a very choppy experience until now. What we have therefore decided to do to ensure that we have good bidders for our exclusive zones is to limit, in the first instance, the number of such operators in the country to 3. All right, so everybody will be incentivized. If you want to be in this space, you have to come now. And those 3 zones are Hanover and Westmoreland, 1, St. James, 2, and Trelawney and St. Anne as 1 zone. And that's a zone that Harmony Cove will have. It is absolutely contemplated that in the future, Jamaica can develop other exclusive zones that do not compete with these 3. Possibly 1 in the east, once the airlift issue is solved, possibly 1 on the south coast, maybe even 1 in Kingston. But it would be premature, I believe, to be speaking too much about those. What we have to do first is to ensure that we have successful investments in these 3 zones. And thereafter, the exclusivity is for a fixed period of time. The period of time, I think, is 13 years, if I'm not mistaken. It's between 10 and 13 years. Yeah. So it's exclusive for that period. Good question. After that time, we can have other casinos in those regions. So the idea is to get the first 3, make them successful, and then we can take it from there. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Next presenter to his feed. And final statement by Minister comes from the Minister of Labour and Social Security. He sits in the House as the member from Clarendon Southeast. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Copies are being distributed for members and yourself, Madam Speaker. With your leave, Madam Speaker, I'll proceed.
Yes, Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise today to give a brief statement as it relates to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security's efforts regarding our labor road shows, but also I take the opportunity. Today is a day in which older persons across the globe are also celebrated. It's International Day of Older Persons. So I just want to acknowledge that as well. International Day of Older Persons. No, not the elderly. Madam Speaker, undoubtedly, in today's dynamic world of work, change is the only constant. The advancements in technology, market fluctuations, and evolving demands of consumers mean that the workplace landscape is in a constant state of flux. In embracing the change, we recognize that we can turn these shifts into opportunities for productivity and growth. And the Ministry of Labor and Social Security has been seizing the advantages hidden within these shifts by ensuring, Madam Speaker, colleagues, that we turn these shifts rather, into the opportunities for us to advance the transformation of Jamaica's workforce for greater resilience and sustainable development. Madam Speaker, having recorded our historic low unemployment of 4.2% last year, our focus is now on preserving our labor market gains, which depends in large part on our country's preparedness for economic shocks and climate change realities. Building a resilient workforce is the most certain way for us to propel Jamaica towards achieving its sustainable development targets. Jamaica's labor force currently consists of approximately 1,486,400 individuals, with an overall labor force participation rate of 68.9%. This is 6.3% higher than the overall labor force participation rate for Latin America and the Caribbean, which is average at 62.6% for the first quarter of this year. For us, as we prepare for the upcoming Second World Summit on Social Development in 2025 next year, 30 years after the historic gathering in 1995, where participants approved the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development and its program of action, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we have a laser focus, and we're focused on a human-centered three-prong approach to the labor market development. One, job seeker readiness for emerging and expanding job opportunities. Two, employer education and training on the changing world of work and the opportunities for engagement in new industries. And three, Madam Speaker, strengthening the worker management synergy for selection of the best suited workers, job retention, and industrial harmony. It is important for us to highlight that the future of work begins now. And our ministry, through our MLSS On The Go initiative, has recently hosted the Western Regional Labor Talks Roadshow under the theme, Transforming Jamaica's Workforce for Greater Resilience and Sustainable Development. The roadshow featured, Madam Speaker, a mega job fair and also an information session, panel discussions, discussing training and development of workers, bringing potential employees to a place, members of the trade union, experts, academia, all to have conversation and social dialogue on how we can move forward the discussion relating to labor in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the information session was attended by representatives of the International Labor Organization, who there expressed their commitment to working with Jamaica on developing the care economy, advancing the agenda of decent work, and working with us to create new opportunities in the green economy. The ILO has given its full commitment to providing funding support for the Jamaica Household Workers Union, as well as further research on the achievements in eliminating child labor in Jamaica, and the commencement of the ILO Jamaica Just Transition Project, with an official start date, Madam Speaker, which is today, October 1, 2024. This project will be implemented in collaboration with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and along with our government and private sector stakeholders. The objective of the ILO Jamaica Just Transition Project is to support Jamaica as we infuse climate action with decent work principles to advance social justice and the sustainable development goals. Madam Speaker, this is critical. And we will say more when we come to the official launch of the project in November. Madam Speaker, in addition to the mega job fair that I spoke about, the Western Region Labor Talk Roadshow also featured some very engaging and exciting panel discussions on the future of work, specifically labor demand and supply, occupational changes, as well as the digitization and the advancement of technology. Importantly, Madam Speaker, the issue of having a human-centered approach was a central point raised by our employers and worker representatives as being essential for our sustainable development. Madam Speaker, Jamaica must challenge itself to have a focus on development through green lens. And I'm specifically speaking on the green economy, environmentally friendly practices, and the gender perspective. Additionally, investment in training and talent development should be essential areas of expenditure for entities at all stages and levels of growth across our country. Madam Speaker, in only one day, our Montego Bay Roadshow attracted over 2,000 participants, with 1,500 job seekers and 500 participants representing 59 entities from several industries. These industries included the health sector, hotel and accommodation, BPOs, and the retail and distribution sector. It was a success. And it is important to note, Madam Speaker, that this initiative is geared at addressing the concerns of both our job seekers and employers, who we hear many complaints from at times. Many persons will say, we want to work, we can't find one, and others will say, we can't find workers to fill the positions. Our job is to create the environment to connect the two. Several, Madam Speaker, received job opportunities on the spot, including persons with disabilities. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we will continue in our efforts to close the labor gap, and in this regard, job readiness training is a part of our approach, as well as facilitating the screening and selection exercise. And Madam Speaker, as I've always said, the No One Left Behind policy of our ministry involves helping our job seekers to improve on their interviewing skills and to understand the employment expectations. We want our young people in particular, Madam Speaker, to be prepared when they step into that room for an interview. Many competent persons fall short because of nervousness, and that can be addressed through preparation. Madam Speaker, while aptitude and certification are relevant criteria, the attitude on the job is of great importance in our preparation process, and we highlight that. And we've raised that in our conversations through information sessions and in our discussions and panel conversations at the roadshow. Labor market resilience, Madam Speaker, depends on job creation, effective screening and selection, as well as retention through adaptive labor practices, training and development as well, together with opportunities for promotional advancement. Madam Speaker, our roadshow continues to create that environment, as I said, that is enabling for networking, knowledge sharing, and collaboration as we build a stronger, more resilient workforce in Jamaica. It must be noted that our activities are not, however, limited to roadshows. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we engage in continuous recruitment activities, job readiness training, information sessions, and dispute resolution, all of which are integral to the development of a productive labor force. Madam Speaker, the next in our series of roadshows is scheduled to be in St. Anne in November, and we should be going to Manchester early next year and on to other parishes. These roadshows will provide another opportunity for employers and workers to connect. Additionally, we are preparing to host an information session in St. Anne on November 27th to discuss key requirements for labor law compliance, frequent pitfalls surrounding employment termination, as well as for us to provide further opportunities for employers to network and to share their own experience. All of this is because we want to build an inclusive and resilient workforce in our country. Madam Speaker, as I close, we are on the road to transforming Jamaica's workforce for greater resilience and sustainable development. We will continuously monitor the emerging trends in the labor market as we prepare the Jamaican people for the labor force, driving innovation and ensuring that the workplace remains resilient and sustainable in the ever-changing world of work. We appreciate, Madam Speaker, the collaboration with our partners, and we thank them for their support as we encourage all stakeholders to make an active contribution to the efforts to safeguard and to protect the livelihood of this and future generations. I take the opportunity as well as I close to thank the team at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, including those officers in our parish offices as well, that continue to advance the efforts to build a resilient and stronger labor market and workforce. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from St. Andrew, Southwest will respond.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thanks, Minister, for the update that you have given us on the road shows and what is happening in terms of that. Minister, I believe many Jamaicans are looking for a comprehensive program that outlines the pathway to this transformation of Jamaica's workforce. And I'm understanding that the roadshow is an element of that. It would be good to see that comprehensive program so we can look at where it is going. Minister, as much as we like to talk about the low level of unemployment, anything that we are doing, I believe, going forward has to look at the quality of employment that is there. And I see some of that here. My concerns are, Minister, that in a country as small as we are, as tribal as we are, as partisan as we are, I am always concerned about how information gets passed, location of where these activities are held, who does screening, who collects the data, what happens to that data, and how is it used. Now, from what you're saying, I gather that some of this has been done on the spot with some of the employers who are there, which is good. But I raise these questions because more and more I get persons asking me about the transparency and the openness with which these activities are conducted. So I just wanted to place those on that table. And I think that's where I'll leave that for now.
Last question will be, Minister, just allow the member from St. Andrew Western to ask his question, and then you can wrap up. You withdraw the question, Minister?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, firstly, thank you for the comments. I think we can agree that the approach that is being taken is one that allows for us to understand the building up in terms of the workforce for productivity. And that's what the road shows are about ensuring that the job seekers are ready. We have actual information sessions before the road show, and we ensure that we create an environment. So the interviews are done by the companies. We are there to simply create the enabling environment so that the job seekers can connect with the companies that are looking for potential employees. So in terms of the transparency and openness of those activities, all persons are open to come. And in relation to where these things are going to be staged and where they're occurring, that's why I'm making this statement here today. We make this statement so that all 63 members can be advised, notified, aware of the intentions, and all of Jamaica who is watching will be able to know that we have done one road show, we intend to do others, and we will continue to update the country as we advance in terms of our efforts to develop a more resilient and stronger labor force. Thank you, member.
Thank you, Minister. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the Jamaica Information Service for the financial years 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021. Finally, the Auditor General's Department Certified Appropriation Accounts, Head 15010, recurrent from the Jamaica Information Service for the year 2021-2022. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement, pardon me?
I have a motion.
Please excuse me one moment.
Oh. No. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whereas there is a ministerial code of conduct in place from 2002 that governs the conduct of members of the cabinet, and whereas the Prime Minister did not inform the people of Jamaica that he was being investigated by the integrity.
Member, please.
But I don't even need to hear another word. If the member in any way intends to go down a road that is, you can't understand if you don't listen. Permit yourself to use your ears and not your mouth. Permit yourself to use your ears and not only your mouth. If it is that the member intends to travel down a road that is going to breach the standing orders in raising matters, let me just say it before, that are sub judice. Hold on, I'm just telling you, that cannot be accommodated in this house. So if that is the route, if that is the intention, if that is the intention, stop now.
Member, you start on a premise, And as far as the standing order is concerned, I hear the first part of where you're going and section 20, public business, 22, sorry, notion of motion, amendment and manner of giving notice, section 3. If the speaker is of the opinion that any notice of a motion which has been received by the clerk infringe the provisions of any standing order in any way out of order, he may direct that the member concerned be informed that the notice of motion is out of order, that the notice of motion be entered in the order paper with such alteration as he might direct. Member, I am saying, because there is, when I read from the Erskine May Parliamentary Practice, paragraph 2, page 333, matters awaiting judicial decisions, that the motion relates to a matter that is now before the court, and if it is, because there is a matter now under judicial consideration, it ought not to be discussed as it is sub judice. At this time, I am now ruling that this motion will not be entertained. Member, if the I just made the I am saying to you, member, if it has anything to do with the matter that I just spoke about, then I'm ruling it out of order. We are not going to entertain it.
Yes, thank you.
No, we don't have to hear it. And if I am going to stop you again if you go down that road.
Mr. Speaker, you've indicated this matter is sub judice. I'm not aware of that. However, what this motion engages is simply a matter of a breach of the ministerial code of conduct by the Prime Minister. That is not a matter.
Member, there's
Members, I'm not so sure why you're descending to such loud discussions. I believe. Go ahead, member.
Madam Speaker, I was trying to get the attention of the speaker before they left. I'm not going to go to Mace yet because they have left. Is there a signed private member's motion before the House? No, is there a signed private member's motion before the House?
A private member's motion came during the sitting of the House.
Is it signed?
It was signed during the sitting of the House by the member making the motion.
But it was signed during the sitting of the House. But convention is, any such motion must be sent to the clerk of the House 2 days before. And this is what we have been doing all the while. And the gentleman across there, who's supposed to be the leader of that side, always mentioned every day, convention, and you want to breach that list today, you can't send resolution or nothing at all during the sitting of the House. The clerk ought to receive that 2 days ago. So it can't be entertained. I won't go to maze yet. If it was signed before, then I go to the maze where it's concerned. I won't. So it can't be entertained. As a matter of fact, we shouldn't discuss it. It must be ignored, Madam Speaker. It has not reached the rules, regulation, and so shouldn't be discussed in the first place. It must be ignored. As the value that it is, it must be ignored.
Member, in response, as you realize, we have, and myself particularly as Speaker, have repeated on many occasions that things need to get to the Parliament with adequate time so that we can read and we can ensure we follow the proper procedures. We were in fact notified by email that a motion would come, but it didn't come until just before I got to Parliament. And it does take some time to review and ensure that motions are properly laid. A signed copy of the motion came to me at the desk when Member Paulwell came to the desk during the sitting of the Parliament. And I just came out for a moment a while ago and I note the opposition walking out. I was coming back to tell them I'd gone out because I was just completing my review so that they could go ahead and debate if they so choose. However, even though they heard as much, they continued to walk out. Member Charles?
Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that the opposition, and I say this with all seriousness, because Jamaica is watching us. It is so unfortunate that the opposition has chosen to walk out on this issue. The opposition is led by an attorney at law who is fully aware that there is no ambiguity in the rule of sub judice. It is a rule that is essential in preventing interference in legal proceedings and preventing the risk of undermining the fairness of any trial or any matter that is before the court being adjudicated. But what will happen is that they will use it as a tool to attempt to cause persons looking on to think that there is an effort to block the motion. And that is what is unfortunate, the continuous effort to manipulate the minds of Jamaican people. And what I find disgusting is the discussions around integrity by persons who are willing to break down the integrity of this court proceedings for their own pursuit of power. In the pursuit of power, they're willing to breach, destroy, and cast away the rules, the standing orders, the law, anything that has to be done. Tear down people, mash up the country's reputation, all because of the pursuit of power. And we stand here in this honorable house, this high place, elected to serve the people, not to carry them over a cliff, not to manipulate their minds. And I can tell you right now that they're downstairs. I don't even have to look because you can know the patterns. They are probably downstairs right now trying to utilize the media to make it appear that we don't want a motion. What we don't want is for you to interfere in court proceedings and cause the integrity of those proceedings to be damaged or destroyed. And the fact that the leader of the opposition, who is trained as counsel, is unable to understand that and chooses that to be the action of those he leads, speaks to Jamaica about how he would lead this country. All they want is headlines. But I'm going to tell you this, Madam Speaker. We are not going to allow the integrity of this house and the rules of which we abide to be inflicted, conflicted, or destroyed by their pursuit of headlines and power. It won't happen. If they wish to discuss this matter that is sub judice, do it on Hope Road, Old Hope Road. Do it in your yard. But if they do it in the parliament, and if they're even doing it downstairs now, what it means is that they don't care about the system, the separation of powers, the judiciary. They have no respect for that. Because I can tell you they're downstairs now, I'm sure, trying to manipulate it, or will go to another place to try to do so. Jamaica must watch. Jamaica must make their assessment about those who are seeking to do what they try to do.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to add, because it is quite clear that this motion that the leader of the House was bringing was not appropriate, having come here, to the best of my understanding, as you say, Madam Speaker, when you were sitting, and as member from Southwest St. Catherine pointed out, the motion must come to the clerk for you, Madam Speaker, to be able to assess whether or not it is appropriate. And I think, Madam Speaker, it was deliberate that it came just at the time the House is about to sit, expecting that you would sign off, and so that you would not have the opportunity to see if the motion was appropriate. So the idea of they sending it by email and then bringing it to the House just about the time when the House is sit was to ambush you, Madam Speaker. And I say, Madam Speaker, it is quite clear they intended to do that so they can walk out for a headline. And that is all I think, Madam Speaker, they hope to achieve.
So members, I am going to move to the next item on the agenda. I did not see any items on notices of motions given orally here on our agenda. Questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sitting of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House, first obtained.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Judicature Rules of Court Amendment Act 2024.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I now move that a bill shortly entitled the Judicature Rules of Court Amendment Act 2024 be read a first time.
A bill shortly entitled the Judicature Rules of Court Amendment Act 2024 read a first time.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill.
Public business.
It is intended that the Minister of Justice will take the measure to its final stages.
Madam Speaker, before I should have asked Madam Speaker to give notice that at a later stage today I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of the bill and to take it through all its concluding stages.
Thank you, Minister.
So at public business, Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of the bill, notice of which I gave earlier, and also for me to take it through all its concluding stages.
House Leader.
Speaker, a slight preemption in that regard. But
Minister, please turn your mic off. Thank you.
yeah, so Madam Speaker, we can move forward in the agenda as per your direction, and later to allow the minister to conclude his presentations and take the bill through its final stages.
Thank you, House Leader. Referral of Private Bills Committee. We'll ask the Deputy Speaker to go first. Go ahead, Deputy Speaker.
Madam Speaker, a private bill shortly entitled the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel in Jamaica, Incorporation and Vesting Act 2024 has been presented to this Honorable House. The standing orders of this House of Representatives stipulates at order number 85, subsection 7, that private bills must be referred to a special select committee. However, before this can take place, the bill must be read a second time. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the chairman of the Private Bills Committee, I now therefore move that a bill entitled An Act for the Incorporation of the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel in Jamaica and the vesting of properties in the body so incorporated be now read a second time.
The question is that the bill be read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Clerk.
A bill entitled An Act for the Incorporation of the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel in Jamaica and the vesting of property in the body so incorporated read a second time.
Thank you, Clerk. Deputy Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I now move, be it resolved that a bill entitled An Act for the Incorporation of the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel in Jamaica and the vesting of property in the body so incorporated be referred to the Private Bills Committee for consideration and report.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister of Justice.
I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of the bill, notice of which I gave earlier, and also for me to take it through all its concluding stages.
Question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the minister to take second reading of the bill, notice of which he gave earlier, and also for him to take it through all its concluding stages. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister? May now open the debate. Yes.
Madam Speaker, this is a very simple amendment to the Act, the Judicature Rules of Court Act. The promulgation of the Judicature Rules of Court Act 1961 resulted in the establishment of the Rules Committee of the Supreme Court, which has the function of making rules of court that regulate and prescribe the procedure and the practice that is to be followed by the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. Madam Speaker, pursuant to paragraph 1 of the schedule of this Act, the Rules Committee currently consists of the Chief Justice, the President of the Court of Appeal, a Judge of the Supreme Court designated by the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, the Director of State Proceedings, and 5 attorneys at law in private practice that are appointed by the Minister of Justice on nomination by the Bar Council. Based on this legislative prescription, Madam Speaker, it is important to note that the holder of the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has been excluded from the membership of the committee. However, Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the committee has indicated a desire to include the DPP as a member of the committee in light of the passing of the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Act 2021. This amendment grants the DPP the right of appeal, and as a result, rules of court are currently being drafted to regulate the procedure necessary for the DPP to exercise the right to appeal. As the DPP is not a member of the committee, the DPP is not empowered to make any contribution towards the preparation of these rules of court. In addition to the rules of court that are being prepared in respect of the DPP's right to appeal, Mr. Speaker, there are other rules of court that are being contemplated that may have an impact on the office of the DPP. For instance, rules relating to criminal case management and digital audio recording in criminal matters. Similarly, the DPP has no opportunity to offer contribution towards the preparation of these rules of court as a result of the exclusion from the committee. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it should also be noted that the current formulation of the Judicature Rules of Court Act does not grant the minister the power to amend the schedule by order subject to affirmative resolution. As it relates to newer and updated pieces of legislation, the inclusion of such a provision facilitates the timely amendment of schedules, especially in matters of urgency. The absence of such a provision, Mr. Speaker, results in a more time-consuming process for the resolution of urgent matters. Mr. Speaker, it is with all of this in mind that I commit this bill, which seeks to amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, to the House for approval. I will now take us through the clauses of the bill. Clause 1 of the bill makes it abundantly clear that the bill shall be read and construed as one with the Principal Act. Clause 2 of the bill proposes an amendment to Section 3 of the Principal Act by empowering the minister to amend the schedule of the Principal Act by order subject to affirmative resolution. Clause 3 of the bill proposes to amend paragraph 1A of the schedule of the Principal Act to include the DPP in the list of members that form part of the Rules Committee. Clause 3 also proposes to amend the schedule by inserting a new subparagraph which grants the chairman of the committee the power to, on an ad hoc basis, invite a person who is not a member of the committee to assist the committee in any matter relating to the work of the committee. Mr. Speaker, this is the extent of the amendments to the Judicature Rules of Court Act. I look forward to the support of the members for this simple but important piece of legislation. The bill to be read a second time. No. Sorry.
Member from West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give my support to the bill to amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act. I agree with the minister that it is a non-controversial change that is being made, and that the change is necessary to enable the Director of Public Prosecution to participate in the setting of rules for matters before the High and Appellate Courts. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to use the opportunity, since there are new additions to the supporting staff of the Parliament, that all bills are to be checked for the left-hand pages, which set out the section of the law being amended. It's important that when the amendments are being read, you can compare and see in the bill the sections being amended, so that clause 2, which tells you that the Principal Act is amended by inserting after the subsection the following, and that an amendment is being made where appropriate and necessary. The left-hand pages are to be included. But I support the bill.
I now move for second reading of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the bill be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, read a second time.
The House will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to make an amendment to the enacting clause. At the moment, it has been enacted by the King's Most Excellent Majesty. But recently, the House passed a bill to remove that enacting clause to make it, instead of the King's Most Excellent Majesty, the Parliament of Jamaica. So the change, Mr. Speaker, should be, Mr. Chairman, be enacted by the Parliament of Jamaica by and with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Representatives of Jamaica and by the authority of same. Is that clear, Mr. Chairman? So it's just a change to the enacting clause to say enacted by the Parliament of Jamaica and not by the King's Most Excellent Majesty.
Okay.
That's one change. Failing that, Mr. Speaker, I would propose that we put the change and then the rest of the bill. So could you put that change to be passed, please?
The request is on the floor for the change to be passed. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. We now move to, I put clause 1. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. I put clause 2. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. I put clause 3. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? The ayes have it. Those against? The ayes have it. Sorry. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage with one amendment. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
I do report as having passed the bill having passed committee stage with one amendment. Minister, you may now.
Mr. Speaker, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Judicature Rules of Court Act, read a third time and passed.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Bill has now been passed. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today. On the motion of adjournment, I'd like to inform the House that the constituency debates, the state of constituency debate, commences at the next sitting of the House, which is intended to be Tuesday, the 8th of October. And at that time, it is expected that the speaker will be Mr. Robert Miller, the member from St. Catherine Southeastern, who will open the debate, followed by the Honorable William J.C. Hutchinson, the MP for St. Elizabeth Northwestern. May it please you, Mr. Speaker, in that regard. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, October 8th at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House.
It is now that the request is that the House be adjourned until Tuesday, the 8th of October at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? Those against, ayes have it. This House now stand adjourned.
Williams here, inviting you to join us on Financially Focused, the ultimate destination for go-getters who are ready to take the step-by-step actions to master your finances and create a family legacy. Tune in, watch, take notes, and participate to discover the strategies of our expert guests who provide invaluable guidance and powerful coaching tools to supercharge your financial journey.
Motors, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.